Hello, everybody. My name is Guadalupe Sandoval,
My name is Jessica Sacedo.
Hi, I'm Fabiola Rojas.
and our person in the art is Anjolie Menon. So we're gonna talk to you guys a little bit about Menon. We're gonna show you some examples of her artwork. We're gonna discuss her culture and heritage in her artwork, and then we'll showcase some ways you can incorporate some of her paintings in the classroom. So a little bit about Anjolie Menon. Menon was born in 1940 in what is now known as West Bengal. She began painting in her early teens and recalls that by the time she turned 15, she had sold some of her earliest artwork. She studied very briefly at the Sir J.J. Institute of Applied Art in Mumbai, India, and then in her 20s was invited to study at the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, France. Menon's preferred mediums are oil on masonite. Masonite, for those of you who don't know, is a specifically engineered wood made from steam-cooked and pressure-molded wooden fibers. It acts sort of as a slightly stronger cardboard, and her other preferred medium are murals.
Now we're shifting into some examples of Menon's notable work, and we'll give you a little bit of background about those pieces. First, we have this piece called After the Party, made in 2017, and this is made out of oil on masonite board. As we mentioned, masonite board functions as like a cardboard kind of material with sturdiness. So that is her canvas that she uses pretty much in all her paintings. And we see here that there are two empty chairs. And in some interviews, Menon has mentioned that the empty chairs represent that any loss that she has experienced in her life, such as family members, close relatives. And for example, she lost her mother when she was 15, so she knows loss really closely. And she had also lost her father. And so this is a recurring symbol that happens in a lot of her paintings. And it's something that everybody could relate to if they have had a death in the family. So that is what the empty chairs represent. The empty chairs represent people who are no longer with us. Next, we have this crow painting made recently in 2020, also on oil and masonite board. And the crow here is just like a self-portrait, you could say, of the crow. So what she's mentioned about the crow is that she's had this anecdote. She talks about this story about this crow that would visit her, and it was a specific crow. It was a friendly crow that would visit her while she was painting on like a balcony, like an outdoor area kind of studio in her homeland. And so the crow, she thinks that it would visit her and like it was friendly, and it was just very inviting animal that she began to pay attention a lot to and to engage with. So like she would feed it, for example. So that's why the crows appear in some of her paintings, especially the recent ones. And she also said that the crow seemed to insinuate itself onto her paintings. Next, we have Angel and Goat Herd. This was made in 2012, also on oil on masonite. And here we see goats. Goats are also a recurring animal that she has in many of her paintings. She likes goats, and she thinks that goats are mystical and helpful animals. So you can say that maybe goats are her spirit animal. And then here we have a sense of Christianity elements with the figures. That is because she did study in Europe, so she did pick up those Christianity art style elements and that kind of influence, and we see that a lot in like her earlier works. And so she has like a big era of artwork that has these components.
Okay, and now I'll be talking about the culture and heritage. So she expressed her cultural identity with her distinctive female nudes. In an interview, she states, "I do not consider myself a feminist because in India we believe in Shakti, which is a female power or woman power. Unlike here in the West, where we try to be equal with manpower, she believes in balance, both male and female are equal, because she has always felt that she is in power, and we could see this throughout her artwork. We could see the Divine Mother being captured and the magic of motherhood."
And now we're going to discuss a little bit about some of the values that Menon expresses through her artwork. The first value is an openness to differences. She's discussed in interviews how traveling the world, learning about new cultures, and being open to these cultural differences has had a great impact on her development as an artist. Another value we can see a lot in her artwork is this blending of different cultures. Menon is of mixed American and Bengali heritage, and she studied art both in India and outside of India in the West. And you can see how these two very distinct cultures are presented in her artwork. Most notably, she depicts a lot of Christian imagery with human figures that are very clearly South Asian. And so you can very clearly see that to Menon, it's very important that her artwork incorporates a bit of everything.
Next, we're going to talk about some of our personal impact from being exposed to Menon's work. So for myself, overall, my experience with her artwork is that I initially felt like she had been expressing a lot of feelings of hardship or maybe about making sacrifices. So those are feelings that are very personal to people in general. So I think that um, she really did send these messages through her artwork, through a big portion of her artwork. That's what I initially thought. But yeah, this is also good because this is a universal thing to everybody. And other than this, I admire how Manon has integrated so much of her personal experiences. We wouldn't know about these personal experiences without seeing the interviews, of course, or hearing about it, but she is very open about it. So these personal experiences are also represented in her artwork, and that makes her artwork very dynamic and offers a lot of differentiation with art styles.
Unlike my groupmate Fabiola, I was initially very shocked by Menon's artwork. I feel like Menon uses a distinctly colorful color palette. She uses bright colors that, because of my identity as a Latino, I associate a lot with liveliness and festivity and joy. So to see these bright colors used to depict somber emotions such as like grief and loss was initially very disconcerting. However, I did grow to appreciate that very stark contrast between her chosen color palette and the subject matter and emotions in her work. To me, it just speaks to the universality of emotions such as loss and grief. And I think it's very bold of her to go against the flow and use such colors to depict something a little bit more serious in her artwork. I feel like that's something not too many artists gravitate towards in their artwork. And so yeah, I really just grew to like really appreciate what Menon was like bringing to the table.
In contrast to what Lupe was saying, I thought her artwork showed a more of a dark and gloomy color because of the color choice she would choose. I also noticed that most of her paintings, none of her figures were smiling, which gives a sense of sadness. I did thought that her artwork was similar to Diego Rivera, which I thought both artists did a great job in representing their heritage. And they also had similar art style and technique, which did a great job in presenting their own themes.
Next, we're going to speak about some ways to integrate Menon's work into the classroom. So you could do this across the disciplines, of course. So for example, for ELA, we would suggest that we could integrate her work by focusing on themes and motifs that the class can interpret for her paintings. It could be just focusing on a single painting or a selection of paintings. And this way students can creatively write out their interpretations in ways such as in poetry, like a haiku poem, or in a reflection or a summary, or maybe a short story, etc. All right, and next we have the history and social science integration. And for this, we think that we would introduce art history elements, and we could focus on the art styles or influences that Menon's work seems to represent, such as the westernized influence that she conveys in many of her paintings, like in her earlier works, just because she did her fine arts education in Europe, and of course that is westernized. So we could also mix in some geography based on that. And then next we have the science area. In science, students could study the components of oil paint and masonite and why they seem to function and bond well together for her paintings and murals. So students can investigate why Menon might have chosen these two, like this combination for her artwork, and why, like, what are these components made out of. So I think that would be a very cool investigation. And then next we have mathematics. So for mathematics, we could incorporate like the geometrical elements that we see in some of her paintings. If you look at a lot of her paintings, you can see that there's a lot of shapes present, such as there's checkers, so squares, there's a lot of quadrilaterals. So there's 2D shapes everywhere because she does focus on a lot of objects. And we could see if students can identify the 3D shapes as well. And this goes back to kindergarten, so it's a very expansive mathematics path. So for example, we could ask, what 2D shapes can you find on Life of the Party? Can you identify these shapes? And so on.
That is it. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions or concern, please leave it in discussions and we'll get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.